Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Neepa, who's going to talk about country after divorce and the practical and legal side. So we're just waiting for Neepa to join. And I'm Karen from Divorce Workshop. Glad you guys are here today. Hello, Squirrel. Hi, Neepa.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
See you too. Thank you.
So today is a topic that I think it needs a lot of, explaining too. So we're going to talk about relocating back to your home country, right? And the legal and practical side of that. Is that correct?
Yes, true. So, in any situation when you have to relocate back to your home
Mm-hmm.
country with your kids, there are a lot of pointers that you need to be aware about before taking any step. And especially when the child is a citizen of the country where you are living,
Mm-hmm.
there are some added consequences, or rather, I would say, pointers that you need to understand before moving back. So it could be from legal standpoint and also
Mm-hmm.
from the practically handling your child from the co-parenting standpoint as well. So it's very important that you understand these and then take the right steps so that you don't get into any undesirable consequences in future. So when I say legal, of course, I'm not an attorney, so it's not a
Mm-hmm.
legal advice, but from the legal standpoint, like for example, the first point I would say, when you take divorce here in this country and there is a child custody agreement or order by the court signed by the court or the judge, then you are supposed to follow those
Mm-hmm.
orders, right? And so it's very important that you review your order, that what is mentioned under it, any specifications are there for a relocation, any specifications are there from the other co-parent preferences, or then you need to ensure that you follow this. But if there is it's blank, it's a gray area, then you can have a chance, both the sides, positive as well as not
Mm-hmm.
positive, right, to take actions. So that's very important first point, that you review your agreement. If it is mentioned in that you are not supposed to relocate or you are not supposed to take the kid to the other country, for example, and if you still want to do that, the first step I always recommend, that you don't have to immediately go back to the court and say, hey, I want to do it. Rather, why not to amicably connect the other spouse, the co-parent, and check that, are you okay with it? Do you agree to that? And that amicable agreement, and then you both agree the terms, do you put on paper, then you go back to the court and say, hey, we both agree on this, we are taking this decision for the kid, the best interest of the kid, can you please update it? So of course the court would be happy to do that,
Mm-hmm.
if it is legally possible from the legal standpoint. So it's very important that you review this thing and then take any step. So that's from legal standpoint. And another one, that especially in the international
Mm-hmm.
custody, child custody, there are certain rules which all the countries, not all, most of the countries have prepared a treaty, which is part of the Hague
Mm-hmm.
Convention rule, where the countries, the international countries, participate in that and agree to each other to abide by that rule, so that if there is a um, wrongful abduction or wrongful removal of the kid or the child from the habitual uh, residential place. For example, say my kid is in the US, has been
Mm-hmm.
living in the US for many years, comfortable with everything, the culture, the education, schooling, French, and everything. So he's habitual to this, even if my kid could be a citizen of any other country. So, and if I just take my kid out from this country to the other country, then this rule may apply if
Mm-hmm.
both the countries are part of the treaty, and then we need to ensure that, I think many people are not aware about it because on daily basis we don't face such
Mm-hmm.
consequences. But it's very important that we understand it, that okay, uh, if I'm is it considered a wrongful abduction of the child? Is it considered a wrongful removal of the child from this country and to the other country? If yes, are there any rules that I need to follow? Are there any laws that can go against me and my kid? Because the whole aspect, whatever we are today talking about, is all what is in the best interest of your kid. There's the base, so these rules are also based on that, what is in the best interest of the kids. So there are many rules, pointers and rules around this Hague Convention, that when it is applicable, how it is applicable, when
Mm-hmm.
it can go against you, when it can be in your favor. So it's very important that either you reach out to some lawyers who are aware about this, who work on the international child custody or international divorce or on international matters, and they are aware about it, their experience dealing with such matters, before you take any step. Even if you don't hire them, fine, but at least educate yourself for that. So that's very important that and some countries, like I think there are about 100 or close to 100 countries
Mm-hmm.
who participate in this, like Mexico, Canada, Brazil, to give some names. They do. So they all follow this, but some countries may
Yeah.
not participate in this too. Like, for example, India. India doesn't participate in it.
Oh, it
But
doesn't.
India, no. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, if I'm not wrong, India has developed its own rules and agreements how to handle such child abduction or wrongful thing with different
Mm-hmm.
countries. So if they say, for example, I'm just making an example, I'm not sure if it is true, but say India and US. India made some agreement with US that, okay, if such thing happens, then this is how it should be handled. So India is not participating, say, in Hague Convention, but still these countries have different rules too, so that it's in the best interest of the kid.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to understand what country it is, where you are relocating back, whether these things can go against you, and certain things. But this is just for the knowledge, which I'm sharing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's better you do that. So these are certain pointers from the legal standpoint
Mm-hmm.
that we should know.
Can I just make one little extra tip here?
Yeah.
Is so we all assume we know what the best interest of the child is,
Yes.
and that's not what the court looks for.
Correct.
So it's very objective, not subjective. Like we may say, oh, it's best for my kid to go
Back.
back to Mexico because it's best. But as you said, the court system may say, no, your children have lived here for 7 years, they're ingrained here, they have good community support. So I just want to make mention of that it's not always what we think is best. It's what the legal system thinks is best.
True, true. And that's why it's always advisable that, legal system or the judge and anybody are the third party. They actually really don't know what's going on or
Mm-hmm.
what would happen in
Mm-hmm.
your life on
Yeah.
daily basis. What is the best for you, your family, and your kids. So it's always advisable to, for anything, not only child custody or anything, but for divorce, you try to make it as amicable as possible. Try to resolve all your
Yep.
pointers and issues outside with your ex-spouse or with your family, and then you come out with a solution. Of course, it's not win-win for anybody. Divorce is never a win-win, but you just get the best out of it, and then go to the court that, hey, this is what we agree to, and court would be happy
Mm-hmm.
to work because
Especially in family
they are
matters.
there
Yep.
for you, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
as you mentioned, if it doesn't happen all the time, then there are general rules that they
Mm-hmm.
follow, right? And again, the rule I was talking about is at a high level. There are certain exceptions too, where some things may not be applicable, but it all depends upon the exceptions, the situation, the conditions, and all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you are so right that it's not that always I think. And you know what I have not noticed, that I always think that my ex-spouse is not good or right or maybe uh, abusive, whatever you call it. but he or she can be a good parent, a
Hmm.
good co-parent.
Hmm.
So we need to look at in this situation from that standpoint, and we always look at, hey, it's not good, and it's not good for my kid to have the co-parenting agreement or that setup. I want my 100% custody.
Hmm.
But look at the kid's requirement and other co-parent and see what is good, that is also important. So it's not for only citizen child or relocating back, for it applicable for anybody who is a
Hmm.
co-parent.
Does this happen, like, do you have it happen quite often where when you're coaching that some of your clients, they want to go back?
Yes, I have seen,
Yeah.
especially for
Yeah.
immigrants,
Yeah.
they do. Because again, there are some situations where they say mother is on a dependent spouse visa, and
Hmm.
she thinks that after divorce, I may not be able to
Yeah.
stay in this country, but I want my kid to be with me, and they think of taking the kid back. Or
Hmm.
sometimes, okay, even if I am eligible to stay back and live in this country after divorce, but I'm all by myself. I just want to go
Hmm.
back to my country because I have my family, my support, and everything there. And I want my kids to be there with them to get those
Yeah.
cultural things and all. So, yeah, I have seen this is multiple times, and this is one of the very, very common questions, or I would say one of the initial questions that can I go back?
Yeah.
I want to go back. Can I take my kid with me? Is there anything that I need to understand? Something like, so it's very common. Yes.
Yeah, and I suspect, as you said, considering, some of the kids, I'm not sure, you'd have to tell me that they're citizens already of their country that they were born in. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't, as you said, it can be pretty complicated. You just can't pick them up and move them, right? It's a long
It is.
process and stuff. So,
It is.
so any other, I think you're talking about a bit about practical.
Yes. So from practically, I always say that what you need to check is what is the based on the age of the kid. For
Hmm.
example, what is right for your kid, like when you say want to relocate back, but if the kid is a teenager or in that who have made their life here with the schooling, friends, the culture and everything, and you suddenly take them back because they are already affected by the divorce and the such
Hmm.
things. Even if we don't know, they do get affected, we all know. And
Hmm.
on top of it, when you take them back, so what you need to check is it really a good idea to do that? From current situation standpoint as well as from the future
Hmm.
standpoint, because whatever you're doing for your kid and for kids best future,
Hmm.
you always
Yeah.
keep that in mind as a parent. So it's very important that is it a good idea to do that, as I mentioned, from the schooling standpoint, friends, culture standpoint, we think that okay, I take my kid back because he's from that country, so that culture, but for the kid, this is the country,
Yeah.
you know this is the culture. So we need to really ensure that we take care of these points before we take any step. So that's very small but very important. But and at the same time, another thing is when you are taking your kid back, and so you are taking one, but the another co-parent is still in this country, and that co-parenting setup, you need to ensure you clarify everything. You take I would say agreement from the other co-parent that does he or she agree with this decision. If no, then there could be either legal consequences later on, or it could be a consequences in doing the co-parenting, right? Because they always have a conflict over any kind of agreement that you want to have
Hmm.
from the co-parent. And even if they agree, then it's very good that you take them to the
Hmm.
other country. But then we need to ensure that the kid always want, or it is good for the kid to have balance from both the co-parent, right? So how to maintain that long distance co-parenting,
Hmm.
it's again another whole chapter that you need to take into consideration, that setting up the time for the kid to have say for example video calling every Sunday for
Hmm.
1 hour, where you don't disturb the kid, you have the other parent enough time to have that that connection, that rapport, how to meet, say, for example, on vacation, some special holidays or festivals. So and to ensure that kid has that equal participation from other parent too, so that you put everything on paper, you agree on every single
Mm-hmm.
smallest thing. That I always work with my client, that okay, let's put everything on the paper, let's dig down and see what you think could come up, what are the things that you want to ensure that your kid doesn't miss out on, and then you agree on that before moving out. And if it is, and it is always advisable, if possible, add all this into your legal document, get it endorsed from the legal body, so
Mm-hmm.
everything is clear, no conflict, and it's good for your kid. So these are the practical aspects as well, even if the legal are all resolved and everything is fine, but how to ensure that you co-parent in a way which doesn't impact your kids psychology, emotions, and future. So that is also very important.
Yeah, because a lot of times I know why they crave to go back home, because we've talked about this before about
Yeah.
the support systems are so important. And when you don't have that, like you don't have your parents or your sisters or brothers close by or your family friends. So if you're kind of, struggling that way, it would make sense that they yearn to say, it'd be much easier back at home. And that's
Yes.
another thing. But I think what we've talked about, the important thing that you've mentioned today is that we have to look at the development of the child. You have to look at the best interest of the child and look at all the legal stuff, because that's also important to at
It's
least have
very
a good
important.
understanding. Yeah, it's really important, because now you hear the cases where they're at the airport and they're about to fly out, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now in Canada,
Yes.
I'm not sure about the States, you could probably get a quick motion there to change that and get them to stop at the
Yes.
airport.
Yes. Yes, it
I'm
does.
sure it's the same. I'm sure it's the same pretty much, but otherwise it has to be, it has to be agreed upon. And do you have any that have left? Like, have you had anyone that's left the country that they're in and go back home permanently?
Yes, yes. I know a couple of especially
Mm-hmm.
mothers who have gone back to the home countries,
Mm-hmm.
and especially with the agreement, say with the other spouse, more or less is not taking the responsibility of the kid, and then maybe they have more custody, say 70% of the custody and all, and then they do agree to let the spouse, because when the kid is small and if the mother has no ability or eligibility to stay back, then other parent, if is a nice good parent, say okay, you can take the kid back,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's good for the kid to have a mother when they are small and they are growing up. So I have seen, yes, I have seen a couple of people have gone back
Right,
with
but
that.
if they can be at least amicable, trying to get their co-parenting
Yeah.
best is interest of the child or children,
Mhm.
then it's best to really try to work it out.
Yeah, yes. And I have seen other way as well, where mothers have no choice. They go back, leaving their citizen kid here with the other
Mm-hmm.
co-parent, because sometimes it voluntary as well, because they think that this country, like for example, I have seen one, two Indian women, mothers went back because they think that okay, my kid is citizen of this country, education or future of my kid looks better in this country. Of course India has good education, but still overall, and they are like okay, I can leave my kid here, and of course we can set up some co-pay, or maybe the meetings and all every 6 months or something like that, but they did leave their child here and
Mm-hmm.
then go back to home country as well. So it's both ways.
So it's like we've talked about this before. It's like every person, every couple, every divorce is
It's
unique, right?
unique.
And it's the same thing when you're dealing with citizenships and whether you're going to go home or not with your kids.
Yeah, yeah.
But even just as you said at the beginning of this, just being aware that this can actually that they need to know this is really important.
This is very important. And end of the day, we always say, okay, right now I want to fight or I want to do this, but in long run, what is good for
Hmm.
you, for your
Hmm.
kid, and then plan it back and take the decision. And I know I have seen where people, like, there are conflicts as well, that one spouse or co-parent is so strong, the other has to just let go, and then forcefully also they have to take some decision. But that is what it is. But eventually, then the court takes a decision.
Hmm.
As we discussed, court takes a decision which court thinks is the best
Hmm.
overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll make that decision for you.
Yes, they
Yeah. And
do. And you don't know if it is good or bad, but they do. And another thing is, when one, which is important, I think we discussed this last time as well, because if you get some order or judgment from one court of the one country or that
hmm
jurisdiction, and if you try to get it executed in another country, it may always not be possible to execute an out of jurisdiction unless and until there is separate kind of treaty between those two
hmm
countries, and then whatever rule or order on one that country is applicable or executable in this country, then only you. Otherwise, what happens is, even if you are having some order for child custody or this international thing, but if you cannot get it executed in the country where your kid or co-parent is, it doesn't make any sense. So that
Yeah.
is also very important.
I had one more question. I don't know, but what happens if, so say you're not in a moderate conflict and you're a bit higher conflict, and your other co-parent says, "I'm taking them back home." What's your advice there? Like, you seek legal advice right away? That's what my first thought would be. I've had that been told, not by
Mhm.
me, but by another
Mhm.
client, and I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
You mean if the other spouse is conflicting and just
Yeah,
taking
they're
the kid
more,
out?
it's a
Okay.
bit more high
Yeah.
conflict, and they want, they want to go home, and they threaten to say, "I'm taking the kids home."
Right.
And it would best to seek legal advice on that.
It is. It is. Because even if you say don't want to take any action against that conflicting spouse or
Hmm.
co-parent, but taking legal advice, educating yourself, and be aware about what are your options, what
Hmm.
are your next steps, is very important. Because if needed and if you have to take some steps, you know and you are ready. Because not all attorneys may be
Hmm.
experienced in it or are ready to work on it. So we need to find out that who is the right person who can give me the legal advice, what could be my options, what could be my next step. As I said, it could be called abduction of the
Yeah.
kid or wrongful removal of the kid. Is there a way I can take any action? Or if I think that is not in the best interest of the kid, or the kid is not safe in that
Hmm.
situation,
Hmm.
and if it is true, then there are other options, because the safety is at the question, and the court may take some actions based on
Hmm.
that. So if it is genuinely not the right step, you educate yourself what are your options to take.
Hmm.
So yes, legal advice, to take legal advice is very, very important, and educating yourself.
Yeah, we can talk about that another time. Kind of a more of a high conflict when it
Mm.
comes to immigration, immigrants and
That,
expats, because I think it
yes,
probably gets a bit more challenging, right? Because there's
challenging.
some, yeah, and there's a lot more loopholes. I mean, having a high conflict in general is a lot more challenging, but when you add on the element of,
Yes.
of some of the things we've said today, or what you've said, it can even be more. So,
Yeah, it
um,
is. It is. As just to take one point, like sometimes one parent just leave the country and the house, and the other co-parent doesn't even know where that other that spouse
mhm,
is. And that's whole a different ball game, that how to get in touch
mhm.
with that and then get the legal things executed and all. So yeah, you were right. The high conflict is much more challenging.
Yeah, we should talk about that another
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Neepa before we wrap it up, or do you have any other little tips or anything, Neepa, before we go?
I think we discussed
Yeah, it was a
everything,
great
but
conversation.
the baseline is check what is good for your kid and the future. And educate yourself with every single legal aspect, because
Hmm.
this international has more
Yeah,
challenging legalities that we need to be aware about. That's the best thing I can say.
yeah. This was a great conversation, and as again, we all need to get more educated Thank you for teaching me today as well. And if anybody has any questions, is there a website that we can refer to?
Sure. Let me type my web. We can refer to what?
We can refer to, just to,
Okay.
so I'm www.divorceworkshop.ca, and Neepa was going to
Uh,
type
yeah.
hers in
Let
the,
me just type.
and if you
It's a.
have any questions for either of us, you can just DM us, and
Mm-hmm.
we can take this discussion up next time. Oh, regarding these issues. Okay, yeah. So, is there any website that you have that you know of that can
Sure.
help?
Yes. Let me share that as well. I'm just typing mine, so I'll do that.
Good question.
Yeah, actually, that I had that in my mind. Good for asking. So the for the Hague Convention, I think what you can do is U.S. Department of State. Let me quickly do. I think it's US Department of State .gov. You can refer to that because it gives you a lot of information about how Hague Convention works, what are the rules, who are the
Mm-hmm.
countries participating and all. So you should always you should refer to that because it's the government site, so it's authentic. And of course, based on that, you can search more.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that Canada is the same like US, and that they have the Hague
Yeah, Canada
Convention
also
out there. Yeah,
participates in that. So even if you go to similar research for Canada, I'm sure you will get more information for Canada as well.
yeah, because they at least start there, right?
Yes,
So,
yes, and you can always reach out to any of us, and we would be happy to guide you to get more information on that.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, and Neepa. Hope to have you back next month again because this is always so
Yes.
great. And take care, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Karen.
Bye bye.
Bye.